Welcome to Lawn in Disorder, podcast from the suburbs, with your hosts Karen Morgan and Jim Colleton.
This is Jim Colleton, and welcome to the next edition of Lawn in Disorder, podcast from the suburbs. And I am here, as always, with my co-host Karen Morgan.
Hello, and we're so glad everybody can join us today. Today we are going to be talking about pets. Pets we had growing up, pets our kids have, pets we didn't want to have, pets our parents didn't want to have. But before we start, I remind everybody, if you want to get in touch with us, we are at lawnanddisorder.com. If you have a pet story or a question about life in the suburbs, we are here to help you.
Now, Karen, starting with, we had talked before we started here that you had a lot, growing up in Georgia, you did have a lot of pets down there?
I started making my list of pets we had growing up, and I'm horrified. I am Ellie Mae Clampett. It's like we had a cement pond and a lot of animals, but when I started making the list, it's really amazing how many pets we had growing up. Our first family pet was a Cocker Spaniel named Rascal. He was just the first pet you get when you're little, and he was great, and he was just like the consistent family pet. I have no weird stories about Rascal other than the fact that he used to lay in the gardenia bushes and my mom would get pissed off. But then from there, it just goes downhill. Every other pet we had.
That's where it peaks, right there, huh?
Rascal was the best, and it gets worse from there. We had a toy poodle named Susie that my great aunt and uncle were moving into a condominium, and they could not take this toy poodle into the condominium unit where they were moving to. So they asked my parents, since we were the Clampetts, if they could send the poodle to live at our house. And of course we were like, yes, we want another dog. And my mom was like, I don't really want this, but she, for some reason, did not say no. I still don't know why. So this toy poodle moves in with us, and it's this little white, tiny toy poodle. And because it had been only around adults, it hated children. This dog hated us.
That's a good mix to bring a dog in that hates children with small children.
Small children. That dog and my mom really didn't like dogs, but my mom was the only the only person that the dog would hang out with. And like we would go to my grandmother's house for family events, and my little cousin Matthew was under the table tormenting this dog, just trying to get this dog to play with. And we watched this little toy poodle just leap at his throat like Cujo, just this horrible little dog.
Whatever happened to the little dog? Did it end up going to that magical farm where it can run free?
We had that dog longer than we had Rascal, and eventually I came home from school one day and it was no longer there. So we don't know where.
No one said another word about the poodle.
No one said another word. Then, so my aunt, who liked this little dog, also wanted to get a toy poodle. So my uncle bought her a toy poodle, this little black toy poodle. Well, its name was Buttons, and Buttons grew much bigger than a toy poodle was supposed to be. So they ended up with this giant black poodle named Buttons, and no one in the family liked this dog. We were all so mean to this dog. It was kind of an ugly dog. We don't think it was really a poodle at the end of it. And one day
kind of a poodle mutt or something.
It was just like a poodle wannabe, just a poser, poodle poser. And we were at my grandmother's, and it was cold. We were opening Christmas gifts, and it was cold in the room, and there was a fire going. And the dog at this point was super old, and so she was sitting by the fireplace. And at some point, someone said, Buttons is on fire. Buttons is smoking. Like there was smoke coming out of this dog's fur. Like it was so old, it couldn't tell that it was on fire. And no one wanted to put the dog out. Sad.
That's a nice Southern Christmas when you guys let the dog burn. Let it burn.
It's fine. Nobody likes that dog anyway. But anyway, so those were my two dogs growing up. My brother had hunting dogs. My brother was a big hunter. He had pointers and setters. And
okay. Yeah. So my dog now is a yellow lab, but it's a yellow lab pointer. I've never seen her point at anything. We've taken her for walks in the woods and like past deer, and she doesn't even notice it. So if she was a hunting dog at some point, or it was in her family tree, she is not very good at it.
There's no point with the pointers that my brother had, because they're very high strung hunting dogs. They were not pets, so they kind of stayed out, and they had their own area in the barn where we lived. And so the mother,
So that's all these dogs were for, was for hunting.
yeah, and so which I always thought was kind of sad. It was like, they were not allowed in the house. They were not house dogs. They only stayed out in the barn in their area. And they were very high strung. And then he bred one of them, and then that dog had 15 puppies. And the dog had puppies
In one litter?
In one litter. And so this dog is having puppies while my brother was at the beach on spring break. So my mother and I helped this dog have 15 puppies, and it was very hot. We brought him in the house, and my mother cussed my brother that whole day. These are not my dogs, and I don't know why we're raising these dogs. And
Did he sell the 15 puppies?
He kept a lot. He sold a lot of them, and he kept some of them. And he still breeds dogs now in cats.
Oh, okay, so
yeah,
he breeds cats.
Yeah. So this is the crazy thing he does now is.
I never knew there was such a thing as breeding.
Well,
cats.
I didn't either until my brother started doing this. There's these cats, and they're like little. They look like little tigers. They're like little miniature tigers, and he sells these cats. And I'm not kidding, for $2,000 a piece.
Wow!
People will fly down to Georgia from Michigan and Nebraska, all these places to buy.
Wait, $2,000 for a cat?
Yep. And
Wow,
so
that blows me away. I didn't know anyone paid anything. I thought cats just someone had a cat they didn't want anymore. Or
yeah, that's the only way I'd ever have a cat. I'm not having a cat.
I don't know what made me think of this story in college. We're walking down, we're going to a party, a bunch of guys, and there's this it's freezing cold out, it's January, and there's this little kitten just outside. And so my buddy TJ goes over and grabs the kitten. He's like, oh my God, this thing shouldn't be outside. It's freezing cold, and so it just kind of curls up in his winter coat. And, it was a rough little neighborhood. We didn't know where this cat came from. So we just kept walking and went on to the party. Well, if you show up at a college party and you have a little tiny kitten, women will flock to you. And all these girls were coming over. And actually, I think the party we went to, the girls who were having the party, they ended up keeping the kitten, So my buddy, my other friend, Bob's like, well, that's it. That's the answer right there. If you want to get the girls, you need to show up with a kitten. Well, the only problem is the next night he could not find a kitten. So he just grabbed this gross, dirty alley cat. It's trying to cram it in his winter coat, and the thing's scratching him. It's scratching its neck, and he's like, "Come on, we're going to the party. We're going to this party.
You're gonna get me a girlfriend. You're gonna get me a girlfriend."
All he got was his winter coat got all scratched up. His neck was scratched up. That's a good idea right there, Bob.
Yeah. You're winning. You're winning the girls with that. I've never had cats, and my brother never had cats until he found out that he can sell them for $2,000 a piece. They're called Bengal cats, or like there's.
Okay. Yeah. No.
Anyway, I'd never heard of.
I was allergic to cats. I had a sister that had some cats, and then I was allergic, and then so that was it for the cats. They were they were gone. We had a bunch of I'm from a big family, had 5 sisters, and we had a bunch of different animals. My favorite one though was my sister Mary Ellen had a bunny, and my father built this huge pen like out back behind the house for the bunny. So that's where the bunny had to stay. And it was, fairly cute bunny. I would as far as bunnies go. And then one Thanksgiving, my sister brought the bunny in the house all day. Like all the relatives were over, and so all the kids were playing with the bunny. And then at night, bunny's got to go back out to its house, and brought it back out to the house. It was freezing cold, November in Boston. And the next morning, I'm about to deliver my papers, and I just checked on the bunny, and it was frozen solid. Like, just looked like it just died running. It was like, but my sister very smart girl. She couldn't comprehend that the rabbit was dead, so she was just taking her for a drag, even though it was frozen. And I'm like, and she was like a year or two older than me. I'm like, hey, I'm pretty sure. I was young, but I'm like, I'm pretty sure this rabbit's dead.
This rabbit is done. We had rabbits. My dad built the rabbit hutch up in a tree, like so it was up off the ground, up in this tree, and our dog Rascal would just sit under that rabbit pen and just howl, like and those poor rabbits, they had this dog, barking at them underneath. But my brother named all these rabbits after country music stars. So we had Conway Twitty and Loretta Lynn. And Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers. And then, of course, those rabbits all started having baby rabbits. And then
you ran out of country singers' names?
Yeah. But at some point, I think we had 8 rabbits. We ran out of names. And then at some point, my mom, I think, just had enough. And then they were just gone. And we don't know.
I was going to say, and no one's going to rescue a rabbit, right? It's not like you can drop it off at an animal rescue. You just release those out in the woods and let the hunting dogs have at them.
Well, in down south, you can get rabbits like for sale on the side of the road every now and then, and they'll.
Oh yeah, sure. I see that all the time. No.
But this one guy had a sign that said "rabbits for sale, cuddly or delicious."
Oh,
pick one. So ours were cuddly. Then I guess they became delicious later.
You've never had anything with rabbit in it, have you? No,
I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to eat. No,
I wouldn't. We ended up probably the pet we had the longest was a dog. We literally. I don't know why all my stories are surrounded by freezing cold. We were down the Cape, and it was February because that's when my mother would always take us down the Cape. We had some cousins that lived down there, and we were just at the beach. And my sister, the same sister Marianne, went over this woman. She had a little black dog. She's like, "Oh, I really like your dog," and the woman just handed her the leash and said, "Do you want the dog?" And then, I was running around with my cousins. I came back, and my sister Marianne goes, "Yeah, this is our dog now." I go, "What do you mean this is our dog? We came here without a dog, and now we have a dog." And yeah, the woman, she was down there, and someone gave her the puppy as a wedding present. Then I don't know if she just decided the first child that pets this dog, I'm going to give it to.
Anyone who asks gets to have it. And your mom let you keep it?
Yeah, and we went from, not having, we showed up at the beach without a dog, and we left with a dog.
Wow.
But we had the dog. We had the dog for years. It was a little black dog, and named Scotty. And it was around. It was around for years.
Do you want it? It's yours. Oh my God! My mother would have given all of our pets away like that. If anyone had ever asked, "Can I have Susie the poodle?" Sure. Here it is. Your dog.
Take it. Yeah, but I think if you have a dog when you're growing up, then you're a dog person.
Yeah,
I guess,
probably. Yeah.
And then
we were not cat people mostly. We always asked for birds, and my mom always said she was allergic to birds, and we believed her, and we took her on face value, and we were literally in college before my brother and I figured out that she was lying to us. It was like, you weren't allergic.
Your mother had an allergy. That's just the funniest allergy to have. Oh, I can't really go outside. I'm allergic to birds.
We're allergic to birds. But she could have said I'm allergic to cats, because that's a more fallible lie. But she said I'm allergic to birds. I just hate cats. She just wouldn't have one.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do it. And it took you guys to college to have that realized. Maybe mom's lying about this.
It was one of those. Oh, yeah, she was lying that whole time. We had horses growing up. That's my other Ellie Mae Clampett growing up pets.
Yeah, we did not have a barn. We did not have horses.
It was hard for my mom. My mom has cleaning OCD issues, and so the fact that we even had horses was amazing, because we started taking horseback riding lessons when I think I was in kindergarten, but we would come home from these lessons and you would I'm sure we smelled bad because it was hot and sweaty, and then you smelled like a horse. And so my mom, because she has OCD, would not let us in the house with our clothing on. She made us take all of our clothes off in the garage before we could even come into the house.
So but then you guys actually had a horse. You actually had a horse at your house.
Yeah. So then that was before we moved. Then we moved to the house that had the barn. And as soon as we moved to a house with a barn, we were like, I want to get a horse. And so we got horses for Christmas. And I know for sure that it was my dad that just got the horses and didn't tell my mom it was going to happen.
We're filling the barn with some horses.
We got horses. So we had three. We had a little pony named Trouble. And Trouble could like climb over. He was little. He was like a little bigger than a Shetland pony, but a small horse. And he would jump fences and get out of things. Like he was the Houdini horse. And he would always jump the fence on Georgia football game days when the traffic was backed up out at the highway where we lived. And so I'd always be having to chase this horse with a bucket of feed, in the middle of traffic of people trying to go to the football game. That was awesome.
Just another day in Georgia.
Just another day. And then we had one of the horses that my brother got, this very, very old Tennessee walking horse, and it was black. And it was named Jack Daniels. And Jack Daniels was like 100 years old when we got him. And he was, bless his heart, he was so old and so decrepit. And then at some point, horses, I think I got to college when I sold my last horse, because I used to do shows and stuff. But when I got to college, my mom was like, okay, we can pay for you to go to college, or you can keep this horse, but we can't afford both of these things. So when I went to college was when we no longer had horses.
So you sold the horses?
Yeah, we sold them. So
okay.
And I always thought, it's hard enough when you've got pets and dogs that pass away. You have to bury them in the yard. And I think my mom was more worried that that big old horse was going to die, and we were going to have to get. I don't know what you do. I guess you get a backhoe.
Yeah. So that's funny you say that. So here's my two horse stories. First of all, I have a friend, Glenn, who moved out to Texas for some reason, and just him and his wife moved out there. And he's like me, grew up here in the suburbs outside Boston, and then he moved out to Texas. So he came home once, and same thing. They bought a house, they bought a barn, and they had a couple horses. And he was saying to me, he's like, "Oh, last month was really rough. I had to put one of my horses down." And I was like, "Oh, I figured it was like a dog." I'm like, "Oh, I'm really sorry. That sounds rough." He goes, "Yeah." I go, how does that all work? Does the vet come?" He's like, "No, I didn't know what to do. And my neighbor, who was, would always help me, came over with his backhoe, and literally they dug a hole. And then he goes, I walked the horse down.
Oh, no.
And then the neighbor came down with the shotgun. Boom. Horse has been put down. I'm like, what? Who gets involved in something like this?
And can you hear the guys talking? No, back up a little. No, to your left. Back him up a little.
And I guess to them, it's whatever.
Yeah.
It's got to be done. But you're just like, my lesson is, if you were a horse and you see someone digging a big hole by you, get the hell out of it. You might want to get
a new house. Oh my God!
But I never rode horses growing up. Just something I never did. And then I was dating my wife at the time, and she had an internship down in Washington D.C. And so I went down to visit her one weekend, and she said, "Oh, my roommate took me horseback riding. You want to go horseback riding?" And you don't want to go, no, I'm petrified of horses.
Because you're dating.
Yeah, you're dating. So, I love horses. Sure. I haven't done that in a while. And so we get down there, and, I thought it was going to be like a riding lesson. I guess down in Virginia, it's pretty open. So they just said, "Hey, grab a horse and go." So the guy comes over to me. He goes, "You ever been on a horse before?" I said, and I pulled the guy. I said, "No, I'm a little nervous. I'm not a really big fan of horses." And so he's like, "All right, I got a horse for you." And he pulls out, I think it was that walking Tennessee horse.
It was Jack Daniels. Jack Daniels moved to Virginia.
This horse was 2 hours away from the glue factory, and it probably just looked like, really? They're giving me someone to ride?
I get to go today?
He had me hop up, and he said to me, he goes, "Listen, the horse can sense how confident you are, so you need to be confident when you're riding this horse." And I go, "I just told you 8 seconds ago, I'm very scared and I don't want to do this. What made you think confidence?" And then literally, Aaron got on a horse. We went down this little path, and we went out into this huge field. And Aaron's horse took off like lightning, and my horse just went under the shade and sat there for the next hour. Until the guy with the cattle prod came by that worked at the farm. He goes, "Do you want to be riding?" And I said, "Well, I've been sitting here for an hour."
I'm pretty happy.
He just under the cattle prod, and he didn't even zap the horse, but then the thing started trotting away.
Oh, no. Oh, gosh.
That's my horse's. That's the extent of my horseback riding.
It's my husband is also very fearful of horses, and I've never seen him around one because
They're big, huge animals.
I guess he had a traumatic. He said, I was at a barn one time and a horse bit me, and then so now I hate horses. And I was like, well, that's not great, but anyway, it's not like we have horses now. We do not have horses now, so he's safe.
Yeah. There's no barn. There's no horses.
No. We're just out here in the neighborhoods. Did you have any pets when you were in college?
No. Besides the kitten, that was probably the only
pickup. We're just going to call it the pickup kitten.
Yeah. Besides the pickup kitten, I don't think. No, there was none. We didn't. I don't think we were allowed to have pets or we even tried. You know what I mean? We actually did have, my roommate and I, when we were in an apartment, we were not in a dorm, but we were in an apartment. It must have been my junior or senior year of college. We got a rabbit, and the rabbit was litter box trained. Like you can do that with rabbits. I didn't know. But so we litter box trained this rabbit, and then we came home and found out that the rabbit liked to chew cords, and the rabbit had chewed an electrical cord. And did it kill it?
And then we didn't have any rabbits after that.
So if you're keeping track at home, this is 2 dead rabbit stories we have told so far in the podcast. It's an uplifting podcast.
Maybe technically 3. I'm not sure. I think Loretta Lynn and Conway Twitty went to.
All right, so we could get to double digits dead rabbits before we get over.
Dead rabbit stories.
I went to an apartment once with these guys, and they were having a party. Not even a party. I think there was just a bunch of us sitting around. Having some drinks, and no one felt the need to mention to me that they had a ferret that was just running freely around the house. And I was sitting on this couch. You ever have something just run across your shoulders? It's scary. And I don't know why. I wanted to beat the hell out of someone. I'm like, what? I jumped up, and the guy's like, oh, yeah, we got a ferret. I'm like, no one wanted to mention that? That's the first thing you say when someone comes in the apartment. Hey, we have a wild animal. Looks like a rat running around here.
And it might run over your shoulder.
Yeah, I wrapped it up pretty quick out of that place. I'm like, all right, let's get out of here.
No, we're all done.
But then you get, now when you guys got married, did you guys do the dog kind of see if you were ready for children?
Oh, you know what? Actually, I came with the dog, and which didn't go well. I had when I was in law school, I got a Cocker Spaniel because I wanted to relive my days with Rascal. And this Cocker Spaniel that I got when I was in law school, his name was Taz. And he was a great little dog. But I lived alone in an apartment, just me and the dog. The dog slept in my bed. The dog was very happy when he was living with single Karen. But when Karen moved to Maine and moved in with Scott and became married Karen, the Taz was not happy that he no longer got to sleep in the bed. And now
who's the dude?
Yeah,
who's this? Shutting the bedroom door on me.
Who's this man? And so this dog, who had always been like the sweetest little dog, literally got up on our bed and peed on my husband's pillow. Like, knew which side of the bed he slept on. And literally peed
marking his territory, I would say.
But my husband and I, we got married fairly quickly, and I moved in fairly quickly. So he didn't know me well enough to say, I hate this dog, you have to get rid of this dog. And he was not going to do that. So we still had the dog. Then, so we kind of, all 3 of us mutually lived together for a while. And then we moved into a new house, and this is when I had, Axel was like not even 2, and Sadie was a newborn, and we had Taz, and Scott ruptured his quadricep loading some stuff in the back of a pickup truck. And he had to have his quadricep replaced, reattached on his leg. So he was in the bed, basically back down, Oxycontin, high on drugs. I have a newborn, and I have a not even 2-year-old, and then I have the dog. And at that point, the dog had to go. The dog had to go. And so we gave Taz to my sister-in-law, who lived alone, and Taz won that. And, ultimately Taz lived a long life, probably longer than he should have. She actually like spent money on MRIs and stuff at the end. I never would have, I wouldn't have spent all that money on his health care, but ultimately Taz went to live a better life with someone else.
That's good. It all worked out for Taz in the end.
Yeah.
We did not, me and Aaron had talked about getting a dog, but again, we were both working when we got married, so I'm like, I just felt odd. We had an apartment, you know what I mean? It didn't really have a backyard or anything, so I'm just like, if we do get a dog, this poor thing is going to be in this apartment for a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And so we waited, and then once we had the kids, and you know the same thing when they're little, like we did the fish a lot, and anyone who was thinking of having children and thinking, go the fish route.
Start with fish. Yeah.
Start with fish. There's a lot of death with the fish, but it doesn't really matter because you can always get a fish that looks like your dead fish, and they're not going to not recognize your kids. You know what I mean? We would literally, the fish would die at night. We would that night drive back down to the pet store or wherever the store you buy fish, I can't even remember, and buy another red goldfish. In the morning, boom, fish is back. You know,
no one knows. No one knows it. We did the same thing when our oldest was very little. We got the fish. We got the aquarium, and so at some point he was playing in the top and turned the heater on. So the next morning, all the fish floating at the top, they're all dead. And I was like, what is happening? What is going on? And I put my hand like in the water to start scooping the fish out. And the water was like so hot. I'm like, well, there you go. We boiled our
Yeah, I think a lot of people do that. I had some friends that boil their fish too, you know. It's a sad way to go if you're a fish. You at the pet store, you're like, everything's looking good for me.
Everything, and the kids don't know that we swapped out birds that died. We ultimately we added birds after fish. I think Mac was 8, and literally, but he probably started asking when he was 6 because I recall he asked me for 2 years to get a bird, and for 2 years I went my mother's route and said I was allergic to birds and. But ultimately, he wore me down, and for his birthday, we got him a parakeet. And I was sad that the parakeet would live alone and like not have a friend when we were away on the weekends or whatever. So we got 2 parakeets, and we kept that. Both of them were fine for a while, and then one day when for some reason Mac was at a sleepover or something. One of the birds the next morning was just dead in the bottom of the cage. I'm not really sure why. But we didn't want Mac to be sad, and we didn't want the other bird to be alone. So my daughter and I said, well, let's just go. We'll see if they have another yellow one. Like we started out with a green one and a yellow one. And the yellow one died. So we went to the pet store, no yellow birds. So we got a blue one.
Get a Sharpie and make that thing a yellow bird?
We got a blue one. And we did. Mac is my son who's colorblind, and we really did for a while.
So this couldn't work out any better for you then.
Couldn't work. So we got the blue one. And then Max said nothing for like a week, you know, and we're like, we did it. You know, he doesn't even notice. And then finally he said, what happened to the other bird? So he knew the whole time. Yeah. But then I got into this cycle of never ending birds because every time one would die, I felt sorry for the other one. But now we have literally one bird left, and
I wouldn't even know what is the lifespan of a bird.
They're way too long.
Like a couple years?
No, some people say they can last like 20 years. So
no way, really?
Yeah. So I think the one we have now is Mac will be 18. So this bird is like 10 years old. Yeah, and so wow. We're trying to decide when Mac goes away to college if we just let it go. Send it off to college too.
Yeah, I had. It's funny. So I was over a buddy's house. I think it's high school or college. I can't remember. And we had gone out for some drinks, and the parents were away for the weekend. And so 2 of us are crashing in the family room, and off the family room is the kitchen. And my buddy's mother had a bird, and it's just making bird noises. And you're just laying on the couch, you're kind of hung over, and then all of a sudden I noticed one of my buddies got up, left, shut the door, came back in, and I just noticed there was no more bird noise. But, I'm 20, 22. You don't really putting things together. I'm just a little fuzzy from everything that had gone on the night before. And we got up, and we're going out to get breakfast, and my buddy goes, hey, where's my mom's bird? And my other buddy Pete goes, oh, I let it go outside.
Oh,
like it was a dog or something. He's like, you can't let a bird go. He goes, I figured it would come back, in the afternoon.
There you go. That's a college tuition well spent. It's all good.
Yeah.
The one bird we have now is I just got it extra mirrors, so they now it has.
Oh, it thinks that other birds.
It thinks it's other, and so that's how you really know how stupid they really are. It thinks these are other birds, and I got a disco ball, and so it's got tons of little mirrors. And this bird, I swear to God, thinks it's got thousands of friends in this little ball.
I am with a massive flock.
I am cool.
When we thought about this episode, I was thinking of stories when my kids were little, and we have a deck out back, and my oldest found a caterpillar, and so she was 4 or 5 years old, and it was like a big soft caterpillar. And she's like, oh, can I keep the caterpillar? Can I keep the caterpillar? And we're like, yeah, sure. Put it in a box, So we're letting it crawl across the deck, and it's the cutest little thing. This little girl's watching this little caterpillar. Well, out comes my second little girl, who's, I don't know, maybe 1.5, just learning how to walk. And she's got, those learn to walk shoes, those heavy, soled. And just comes walking, boom, boom, step, crushes the caterpillar. And my oldest starts screaming, and then the little one starts screaming because she doesn't know why the other one's screaming, And then my wife's like, go back out, get another caterpillar. There's 1 million out there. Go get another one.
Get a jar. But I think growing up, anything you could put with a jar and poke holes in the top was your pet. Just,
Yeah, we, my son, anytime we went anywhere, whether it was the beach or even the backyard, there was always something coming back in with us. You know what I mean? Snail.
My parents were thrilled. They were thrilled.
But like the snails and the whatever, toad, you got about a day or two. Those are going to last.
It's a short shelf life. Birds,
and even they don't look like the next day they get up and they have no idea that the toad's gone or the snail's.
It's all gone. So, did you guys eventually get a family dog after you? So, how old were you?
So, the whole thing was kind of like your mother. I told my kids because right off the bat they wanted a dog. From when they were little. And I kept saying, I'm allergic. And then my wife started doing some research on these hypoallergenic dogs. And she was like going to meet people that have these dogs to make sure that they were going to be all right for my allergy. And at one point she was going to drive like 2 hours away to talk to this woman. And I pulled her aside. I said, hey, I got to be completely honest. I'm not allergic to dogs. And so then, she had some choice words for me. But we decided we were going to rescue a dog. And so, as a comedian, I write this joke, and I have this, and I said, hey, my family's looking to get a dog, and I went to the dog pound, and the lady said, what are you looking for in a dog? And I said, I'm looking for 3 things, really. It's got to be good with small children. I'd like it to have nice short hair, and I'd like it to be filled with tumors. And that's the punchline right there. And then I said, I'd rather teach my kids about death than have to pick up dog shit for the next 8 to 10 years, And it's kind of a dark joke, always got a big laugh. So we rescue this dog, Honey, and it's a coon hound mix from Tennessee, and just the nicest, sweetest dog. Uh-huh. And we literally had the dog for 6 months, and it just stopped eating. The food, it just wasn't eating, and it would I would come home and it used to run down the stairs, and it wasn't coming down the stairs. It was always staying up in one of the kids' bedrooms. And I said to my wife, something's wrong with this dog. She's like, so we took it to the vet, and the guy's like, it's probably got Lyme disease. A lot of these dogs from down south come up here with Lyme disease. So we put her on the Lyme disease medicine. That doesn't do it. Another 2 weeks goes by, and I bring her back to the vet, and the guy's like, I'd like you to go in. They have a big, veterinarian hospital a couple towns over. He goes, I want you to go over there. They may do an ultrasound on the dog. And so I'm like, okay. Now, here's the thing. They told us this dog was 3 or 4 years old. Turns out it was a lot older than that because they don't know it was a rescue. I bring the dog into this place to get the ultrasound, and things aren't good when you're in the waiting room and they go, "Can you and your dog come into the office?" You know what I mean? Like, no one else was getting called in the office. Everyone else was getting all their problems solved in the waiting room.
Here's your pills and leave.
Yeah,
You
the
need to come
dog.
talk to us.
The woman goes, "I have nothing good to say to you, Mr. Collins."
Oh.
I said, "What's the matter?" They go, "This dog is filled with tumors." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" I was crying, but then I'm going to this vet who has no idea who I am, or that I've written a joke that has anything to do with dogs having tumors. I go, "Do you realize I've written a joke about this?" And the woman's like, "What are you talking about?" You know what I mean?
And do you realize I could never do this job ever again now? It's ruined.
We had the dog for just about 6 months.
Aww.
And that was it. Maybe 7 months. And we had to put the dog down, which was brutal. Here's the best part. I don't know, 2 or 3 days later, I'm at a comedy club and I'm telling some other comedians the story about what really happened. And this other comedian, Dan Bulger's there. He goes, "Hey, Jimmy, are you still going to do that joke?" And I said, "No, I can't. It's heartbreaking." He goes, "Can I?" That's a comedian. Always look, if you ain't going to do the joke, I'll do it.
If you're not, can I have it then? Are you going to eat your tots? Can I have it then?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we're in that mode of discussion with our dog right now. So our family dog that we've had for almost 16 years he's ancient and 16-year-old lab, and he's to that point, and I don't know. We're at the heartbreaking decision of having to do it, and
I know, because if someone told you, right, like, "Oh, you're going to get 16 years," you'd be like, "Oh, that's great."
Yeah.
But then when it comes around to it, you're like, "Here's my credit card, whatever it takes to keep this dog alive."
Yeah, you know? And that, I do not want him to suffer, and we're just at that point of, okay, hello, are you suffering? You know, we can't tell.
Yeah, that's true too.
He's like a lazy, sleepy, big old lab dog anyway. So, but we're to that point, and we already. My husband keeps saying, "No more pets, no more pets, no more pets." And when we put the dog down, we're going to let the bird go all the same day, and
just wash yourself with all pets.
We're all done.
I wonder if you could ask the vet if he could put the bird down too.
Could you
what they would charge you for putting the bird down?
How much for the bird? Well, we just get your daughter in her shoes and we'd be set.
Yeah, that's right. We ended up, after the first dog, then we got our yellow lab Sully that we have now, and we got her as a puppy from a breeder, and she's great. She's probably 6-7 years old, I think. Yeah, and so it is. And no one, and like, when you lose a pet, I mean, until you go through it, it's so dramatic. But it's nothing that you want to tell other people about. You know, you're in a bad mood, but you don't want to share that with other people.
Yeah.
And because then someone goes, "Oh, well, this guy's in a bad mood because he lost his dog."
Yeah, exactly. But it's hard. It's funny. I was having a conversation with my friend about putting the dog down, and he's like, "Well, how are you going to do it? Why don't you just do it at home?" Now, and I am Southern, and he is Southern. So our immediate discussion was, I said, "Well, I am not going to shoot this dog. Like, that's what normally down south you just shoot the dog." And I'm like, "I'm not shooting the dog." And then I said, but both my sons had surgeries on their broken ankles and knees and things in January, and I got a lot of oxycodone sitting in my medicine cabinet.
You're just gonna have the dog OD.
Yeah, we could just do a home, one of those home ones, like we're living in Washington State, just sit in the backyard and do it. But I can't do that either. We'll go with that, do it correctly.
I know with the dog Honey, I said, well, like that vet wanted to put the dog down right then, and I'm like, listen, I left the house. I got 3 small kids. Yeah, they all went to school, and I go, I can't come home without a dog, which actually was the worst thing, because then I came home and the dog's there, and all the kids come running in the house and they're hugging the dog. "So is she okay, Dad?" And I'm like, I got some really bad news. But then I took the dog the next day, and it's just brutal. It's just and I don't care what you say. It's just a really rough day when you're putting them in the car and bringing them there,
I heard from a friend today who was talking about a guy on the radio down in Nashville who says, anytime you get a pet, you're just starting your own family tragedy. Because it's the beginning of your tragedy. None of them are going to outlive us. and we get to this point in life. And so I think, and they don't know, because I've been reading all these things about putting your dog down and how to not feel guilty about it. And the only thing I keep hanging on is that they don't understand it. So they don't know they're going there for their last trip, which makes it worse. It makes it harder.
Yeah. Their tail's still wagging like, oh, we're probably going somewhere good. That's quite a way to think about it when you get a family pet. You started your family tragedy.
Yeah, we're doing it. So do you have I know your dog you had something about your neighbor's chickens, and there was a
oh yeah, this was Honey. So our neighbors have chickens, and every now and then the chickens are out and just kind of go around and peck at the ground or whatever chickens do. And so I was out doing some yard work, and Honey was out there. And I don't know what had happened. I went inside to take a phone call. You know how it is. Someone calls you about a show. You got to go in and check your book or whatever. And I go inside. I'm inside for 5 minutes, and I come outside, and behind my shed, there is just feathers everywhere. And I see the neighbor, and she's like, oh, my God. And it's a coonhound, so from Tennessee. So we saw a chicken. It's like, we're having chicken tonight. So we grabbed this chicken by the neck and just shook it around. And the neighbor was very cool. She's like, it's my fault. Let the chickens come into your yard. And I'm like, but then she asked me, she said, do you have an axe? Can you put this chicken out of its misery? I'm like, no, I don't have that skill set. I'm not gonna, what kind of.
And do you have a sharpened axe in your woodshed?
I start whacking away at a chicken's neck. I'm like, no, I get chicken from a bucket, from a drive-through window. I'm not going to make it myself here in my backyard. But actually, that chicken, she brought the chicken to the vet, and the vet put something on its neck, and the chicken lived for another couple more months.
No, I think if you have to take a chicken to the vet, you deserve the money you pay them. Come on.
But here's the craziest thing. I asked one time, I was talking to him, and I said, you still have the chicken? He's like, no, every once in a while we'll switch the chickens out. And I said, oh, okay. I go, what do you do with the chickens? And there is a zoo up in I want to say Maine somewhere, and they bring the chickens up and they feed them to one of the lions or tigers or something. I'm like, really?
I thought you meant they put them. That they are the zoo. Look, there's chickens. On our next animal is chicken, because that's about. That's a way to go, huh? You just toss them in a lion's cage. Have at it. We do have York. It's called York Wild Kingdom. I don't even know if it's still open, but it was like I went there once, and it's the saddest zoo. There's a one-eyed elephant, and there's and chickens. I guess I don't know. But you're gonna go for a little walk in the tiger den. Yay!
Now, what was your feeling with zoos with the kids when they were little?
We didn't really go to zoos. The only thing we ever went to up in Maine, we have the Maine Wild Animal Park, which is kind of cool because they take rescued wild animals. They've got some moose, and they've got bobcats, and they've got porcupines. They had an albino porcupine that was kind of cool. Lots of animals that you would see in Maine anyway. So no like exotic tigers. It just was so it was fun. It was pretty educational for the kids, and it's still open. It still smells like cats,
Yeah.
It's and we just walk around going, see, children, this is why we don't have cats, because that's
right. We did the zoos a couple. I know we went down to the one in Rhode Island, which was pretty nice, and when the kids were little, and then we took them to DC. We did the DC Zoo. We were there.
Yeah.
But every time, and still, you go and when the kids are little, and you're looking at these tigers, and the tigers just in this little enclosure. Like, are you kidding me, buddy? You know what I mean?
It's just sad.
Yeah. It's just like, what are we doing this for?
Why are we here? We did the aquarium down in Boston. That was always a good trip, and definitely not a zoo thing, but and we never really took them to see cows and stuff like that. I feel like it would be probably beneficial to take our kids to see this is where milk comes from, rather than here's your Oakhurst gallon of milk. But there's only certain things that I really want to know about. I don't want to know that the chicken I'm eating for dinner may have been in your neighbor's yard earlier in the day. I don't really. Chopped by an axe. I'd never been into the whole.
Yeah, let's go see where milk comes. We all kind of know where milk comes from and the eggs.
We don't need to know anything more than that.
I like walking down an aisle with a grocery cart and I put it in. That's as much as I need to know.
So with your family dog, do your kids take responsibility with the chores for the dog?
I think it's safe to say no. And like every child says, I'm going to walk it and I'm going to feed it. You know what I mean? No, and any parent would tell you the same thing, that the parents end up doing probably 90%. Every now and then, my girls will be like, all right, I'm going to, take the dog for a walk. And that's about it. But no, every morning I usually take the dog out, and Erin usually takes her out around lunch if she comes home. So
yeah, you have a nice dog, and then when your kids go away to college, you can still continue that.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So when they come, it is funny when they're always trying to, not so much anymore, but when they were younger, it was always whose bed was the dog going to sleep in. So like my son would have treats, and he would and the dog's no fool. She's gonna go up, she sleeps with him till he falls asleep, then she jumps down and goes sleeps with someone else because maybe they get treats, So with the labs, it's all about the food.
It's all about the food, man.
They will become your best friend if you have a snack.
This is my friend Jeffrey Dahmer. He gives me treats. I've never lived with him.
Exactly.
So we like to leave every show with a little bit of advice for our listeners on whatever we're talking about. I think I have lots of advice on pets. What would your advice be?
I guess my advice would, you don't want to have that pain in the neck animal, whether it's a dog or a cat. You know how you go to someone's house and the dog is, that's why I was against getting a dog, because I hate going to people's houses when you walk in the house and the dog's barking or jumping on you.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, he's just saying hi. He's just saying hi. All right, I'm done saying hi. Get rid of this, So if you are going to have a pet, whatever it is, you don't want it to be to stop people from coming over to your house. You know what I mean? Make sure and spend, like, we had a little lady that came over. We didn't know what we were doing, but we had a lady that when we first got the dog, it was probably for about 2 months. She would come over once a week and help us, just us with the kids and making sure that we could train the dog properly and come, sit, and just the most basic things that you need to have, though, when you're trying to raise a dog and 3 kids.
Oh, I didn't know that was even a possibility that you could get a lady to come. I would be having her do other. Can you do the dishwasher right?
Yes. I would recommend that if you're gonna get a pet. I mean, I don't know if they can do that with cats or birds or fish, but who really cares?
Cats are gonna do what they do anyway, unless they're the 2,000. I don't know if the $2,000 cats are less. I want to see the fish that stops people from going over their house. You gonna go over the Wilsons? No, their fish drive me crazy. I hate their fish. I hate those fish. I think my piece of advice is what we were just talking about. If you get a pet for your family, parents, it's going to be yours. So, if you are not willing to do all of the feeding and walking and all the decision making for this animal, do not let your kids get the pet, no matter how much they cry, because no matter how much they beg and plead to have a bird, it will eventually be just your bird. Not eventually, pretty much immediately, it's your bird. So don't get a pet until you're ready to take care of it yourself. And, but however, it is good to have a family pet. It's, I couldn't agree with you more too, that it falls on the parents, either both parents or one parent, whatever situation you have. But at the end of the day, there is something great about if you have a crappy day or something goes wrong or your kids have a bad day and you come home and the dog comes running to the front door, wagging it, because they don't care. They're excited to see you all the time. Right. And you also don't want your kids to be the ones that go to other people's houses that, well, we don't have pets, so they won't know how to act. You don't want to have that kid that's sort of like, I don't know how to act around animals. So have a pet. Just know that you're going to be the one taking care of it.
Yeah, and start small. Start with the fish or caterpillar. Work your way up.
Start with caterpillar. Start with ants. I recommend ants. Ants would be great.
And do not write jokes about dogs with tumors if you don't want that to come back and bite you in the ass somewhere down the road.
I think you should sell the joke to Dan. He would sell the joke. Well, thanks everybody for listening. This has been Lawn and Disorder podcast from the suburbs. You can find us on the web at www.lawnanddisorder.com. If you have any questions or want to share stories about your pets, just send us an email at info@lawnanddisorder.com.
Yeah, we'd love to hear any of your pet stories, or if you have any advice, we can pass that on in a later episode, and we appreciate you listening.
This has been the Lawn and Disorder Podcast from the suburbs with Karen Morgan and Jim Colleton. For more information or sponsorship opportunities, go to lawnanddisorder.com. Come visit us again in the suburbs, where you can still be happy, even though you will never again be cool.